Welcome to House of Horns. My name is Victor Corona, aka Victor Producer, and joining me as always is Gilbert Manzano, who does it for Sports Illustrated MMQB. Gilbert, we're in week 5. It seems like this first month of the season flew by, but we're previewing a matchup between the 1-3 Rams and the 2-2 Packers. I would say that this is not what we expected 5 games into the season to see from both of these teams. We expected them to be above 500, but how are you doing, sir? And are you ready to preview this matchup between the Rams and the Packers?
Yeah, I've kind of hit a wall here, like the LA Rams, but I don't feel 1-3. I feel 2-2, maybe more like the Packers. So that's better going into October here, October 2nd, that is to be exact. So yeah, it's gonna be a tough matchup for the Rams, who can't really defend the pass, and they get to face one of the more explosive passing attacks in the NFL with Jordan Love. And yeah, the Packers are 0-2 with Jordan Love, but it has not been the fault of the passing attack. So if the Rams could maybe keep pace in the shootout, which maybe they can't without Puka and Cooper Cup. I'm not trying to be negative off the bat. Then maybe they have a chance because they are 0-2 with Jordan Love. So, but yeah, put up points. How about that?
Yeah, and I mean, the Rams seem to have these matchups now, like the first two matchups at home versus the 49ers. The 49ers are going to have most of their fans there. And it's going to happen again this week, Gilbert, with the Packers coming to SoFi. There's going to be a lot of Packers fans coming out from Wisconsin and all over the country to come watch their Packers as well. So we got a lot to get into this matchup. Aside from what we might see in the crowd there, Gilbert, we have, as always, we're going to game preview this matchup. We have we have the latest news and notes, players to watch, player matchups to watch, storylines for both teams, keys to the game, and games predictions. But before we get to our preview, Gilbert, do you have an engagement questions for our viewers and listeners?
We should maybe stop calling it engagement question because I like what we did last week and called it keys to the game because everybody was
Yes.
very into it. So let's repeat it from last week. What are the keys for a Rams win at home versus the Packers? And it was cool to see people's insight and analysis when it was Rams on the road against the Bears. So what do they need to do at home against the Packers to avoid the dreaded 1-4 record going into the bye week? And a quick reminder that it was kind of rock bottom for the Rams last year when they faced the Packers in Green Bay. Brett Rippon game, I want to say it was 20-3, maybe 26, I forget. And then boom, the bye week, and they're 3-6 to come out of that bye week, and they win 7 out of their last 8 games. So a little kind of similar scenario, maybe not that similar because the bye week is a little earlier this year, but again, it seemed like everything was pretty bad back then. To avoid that and go 2-4, what can the Rams do? Simple answers. Obviously, improve the passing game. Another one that I keep saying is do something impactful on defense, or maybe Jordan Whittington and Tutat will have these monster games and they keep pacing a shootout.
Yeah, and we'll get to some of those storylines, Gilbert. I think we'll talk about, we'll get into when it comes to the Rams, offensively, their red zone issues, and then, defensively, those linebackers. I sent you a video earlier today, and yeah, against the Bears, both Troy Reader and Rosenboom just did not look like linebackers out there. They look like special teams guys, and yeah, you can't have that kind of linebacker play and expect to win. But we'll get into it, Gilbert. But yes, give us your keys to a Rams win at home versus the Packers. There's a lot to get into, Gilbert, for this matchup. And but before we do that, as you asked the question, let's get to some Rams news and notes, and then we'll get also into the injury report. So things are starting to get better for the Rams in terms of, a lot of the news that is coming out from the Rams, injury news, I should say. Cooper Cup has been ruled out already versus the Packers, Gilbert. It sounds like they're expecting him to be back for the Raiders game after the bye week. So that is some good news there. We will see. We haven't heard that from Sean McVay, but then that also gives him a couple more weeks to, let his foot heal and be ready to go if he can go against the Raiders. Also, cornerback Darius Williams, who has been out on injury reserve with the hamstring, and defensive tackle Laurel Murchison with an arm injury, have begun their 21-day window to return from IR. Both practice on Wednesday, Gilbert, and then last thing is cornerback Cam Lampkin was signed to the practice squad. So more additions to the secondary there. And then just moving on quickly to the injury report, as I mentioned, uh, the only other guy that was on the injury report outside of the three I've already mentioned in Cup, Murchison, and Williams is wide receiver Demarcus Robinson with the hip injury. He was limited today in practice. And then the Packers, man, they have a lot of guys on 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 their injury report, Gilbert. So maybe things are looking up for the Rams. You got uh these are the guys that did not practice for the Packers, Gilbert. Cornerback Jair Alexander, he's dealing with the groin. Uh, uh, Defensive tackle Kenny Clark with the toe, guard tackle Elton Jenkins with the knee, tight end Luke Musgrave with an ankle, Devontae Wyatt with an ankle, and Christian Watson also with an ankle. It sounds like Christian Watson, they believe, was going to go on injury reserve. His injury sounds like more of a mild sprained ankle, so he might be back in a couple weeks. And then limited for them was cornerback Carrington Valentine with an ankle, quarterback Jordan Love with the knee, tackle guard Jordan Morgan with the shoulder, and Edgerrin Cooper with the hip. So, anything that stood out to you from the Packers or even the Rams injury report?
Uh, I guess with Puka, it's good news that he's trending in the right direction after the bye week, and maybe play against the Raiders. Because you know even if the Rams do lose, I know I'm kind of getting early here with analysis, but if they do and they go to 1-4, it's way too soon to talk about throwing in the white flag because you got to see this team with Puka Nakua, and if he's back after the bye week and you kind of go off of what happened last year, you don't want to be too reliant on last year, but that feeling of knowing like, hey, we did it after last year's bye week, why can't we do it this year? So that's
Yeah,
optimism right there. Puka Nakua. Hopefully Cooper Cup is back too. That I know he hasn't been on IR, so maybe he is good to go after the bye week. But that's definitely gonna, make everything better, and it gives you kind of this feeling of new hope, in case things go bad on Sunday. So that's good. And then on the Packers, we'll see how many of those players play. It kind of sounds like a typical Wednesday lengthy laundry list, but we'll see how many of those are serious. And then uh, just like a few thoughts on Christian Watson. I don't know what happened to that guy. His rookie year, at the second half of the season, he was a stud. He seemed to be on his way to be the new number one wide receiver for the Packers. I think his rookie year was with Aaron Rodgers. They played
hmm
well. They connected, and then he just got hurt last year. He's been hurt this year. He hasn't done much. So I know that team doesn't run around with Christian Watson anymore. It's more Dontavius Wicks, Jaden Reed, Romeo Dobbs. So but just to kind of throw that out there as a Packers nugget that he can't stay healthy, but he's a very talented player.
yeah, and I like what you said. I didn't really think about it, but like the just kind of the similarities between last season and this season with the Rams and the Packers playing each other, like heading right into the bye week. As you said, like the Rams hit rock bottom last season at 3-6 after that Packers loss. You saw Brett Rippon come in and he was a disaster out there in Green Bay. And then the other thing, Gilbert, like as we start kind of previewing this matchup, the other thing that I thought was interesting too, I think this is like the fifth straight year that the Packers and Rams play each other. I think the fourth previous ones were all in Green Bay, so the Rams get to finally face them here at SoFi. And then before we move on, Gilbert, we have our guy DJ Fono says, what's good, Ramily? It's sad to see other fans packed up by the stadium. Fans need to show up and not be embarrassed, win or lose. The way I see us Rams fans, PPO, pocos pero locos. So pretty, yeah. Like it's been crazy to see that. I mean, but that's just the way it is. We've seen it in Vegas, like all the new stadiums, L.A., Vegas. There are travel cities that a lot of these fans want to go and see, and that's just the reality of it. And then also because it's a new stadium, a lot of fans, you know they paid for some of these seats and they have to pay them back, and a way to do it is to sell their tickets. So I totally understand. Like, we understand what's going on. A lot of people on the outside might make fun of it, but that's just the reality of it, right, Gilbert?
Yeah, I'm kind of tired of the story, but I get it. If you, like DJ supports the Rams, and it must be tiring and annoying to see SoFi Stadium packed with the other team's colors. But it's just kind of the way what the LA market is, and then especially in the NFL, where like it's only 17 games, right? And you don't get many opportunities to see
Yeah.
your team, and especially when these teams sometimes play each other once every 3 years, 4 years. You mentioned the Packers have been playing, but even then, last year the Packers and the Rams played in Green Bay, so you don't get to see your team that's out of state in your backyard on a yearly basis. If you're a snowbird or a transplant or whatever you want to call it, just out of towner, it's not
Yeah.
like basketball and baseball. You got a bunch of games; they play each other every year, so things like that do matter. And then you make a profit if you have these season tickets. Like people want
Yeah.
or business, they want to make money, things like that. And also to add more to it, the NFL wasn't here for 30 years. People gravitated elsewhere. Uh, the parents of who have kids now are going to say, hey, follow the 49ers, follow the Packers, follow the Steelers. So it's going to be a long time before it's going to be true LA Rams fans. Well, there's a good amount. Obviously, we were here in House of Horns, and there's many. But when it comes to just get into the stadium, there are just many factors to it. And I know it must get tiring for a lot of people to explain that to everybody else when people are making fun of them on social media.
Yeah, especially when the Rams left to St. Louis, and there was no team here in LA for 20 years. It's hard. Like, it's gonna take some time. Winning the Super Bowl helps, but also having two teams here, Gilbert, it doesn't help either. I mean, that's part of it. You're trying to win fans, and we've talked about this. You're competing against the Dodgers and the Lakers, two epic franchises in both of those sports. So I think whatever you can get from football, you take it, and then you continue to build your fan base from there. But winning a Super Bowl definitely helps. DJ Fono is asking, are we going to the stadium this Sunday? He's gonna bring his son. So
Nice.
yeah, Gilbert is only doing prime time games this season. He gets his work done from home at a better much better by doing that. And then I usually just watch the games at home. I get a better feel for it that way. I honestly don't get much out of being at the game and trying to do that. It just feels better to do it from home and kind of give you guys our perspective that way. But he will be at uh you're going to be at that Thursday night game between the Vikings and the Rams, right?
Yeah,
Is that the
yeah.
plan?
I'll be there in next month in October, and hopefully the Rams are a little better by then because I probably would ask me a month ago, I would have been like, oh, maybe the Vikings were a terrible team and the Rams were the better team. Obviously, that's not been the case. So hopefully the Rams pick it up and make it an interesting game there for me.
Yeah. So yeah, and then Michael Armenta said, "What's up, fellas? What's going on?" Michael, it's good to hear. Good
What's
to
up,
see
Michael?
you. Good to hear from you. Michael says, "I'm guessing this is his keys to Stafford should call his own plays in the red zone.
Hey, why not?
Hey, why not?" And then he also says, "I will be at SoFi cheering on my team against the Packers." So that's
Okay.
awesome. Yeah, that is real cool. And then James Wheelock says he's been following the Rams since 1960. There's always been opposing fans, so
Yeah.
nothing new here in LA, as we've talked about. It's nothing new. All right, Gilbert, let's move over to Rams and Packers storylines. And as you mentioned earlier, let's start off with the Packers. As we do, we usually start with the opposing team, and because you cover the whole NFL for Sports Illustrated, I like to kind of, instead of bringing someone else from the beat, you follow the league pretty closely, so you kind of keep an eye on the Packers here, and I want to pick your brain here, and I'll start on offense. As you mentioned earlier, with the Green Bay is 0-2 with Jordan Love, and they're 2-0 with Malik
Willis.
Willis. Sorry, Malik Willis. So let's start off with the offense. And so, what is the real Packers offense? Is it the first or the second half one we saw against the Vikings? If anybody didn't see that game, the Vikings got out to a 28 to nothing lead, and then in the second half, the Packers made a comeback. They got within one score, I believe, and then the Vikings just pretty much put it away. So where are this? What's the real Packers offense? Is it the one we saw in the first half or the one we saw in the second half?
I think it's the one in the second half because we saw that a lot last year. There's a bigger sample size. We even saw it in Brazil for most of that game against the Eagles, and obviously playing Brian Flores is not easy, and we can't keep forgetting that Jordan Love is still one of these young quarterbacks. Yeah, he got to face the Vikings defense twice last year, but also he was coming back from an MCL sprain, so he's a little rusty. You get your brain working when you're facing Brian Flores. You don't know the blitz is coming or they're going to drop 8 in coverage. So obviously that really affected him early on, and then by the second half it really picked up. So it's tough to gauge it to a game like that because it jumped to 28-0. Was it more Brian Flores just letting up and be like, okay, I think we're comfortable here. Let's not blitz. Let's not put a lot of pressure. And then Jordan Love, had an easier time, or maybe Jordan Love figured something out. But I'm gonna trust the bigger sample size here. He's a real deal quarterback who got paid a lot of money. And from I've been saying this since day one of the offseason. From all the quarterbacks up for extensions, the only one that I feel comfortable paying is Jordan Love. I think what he did in that sample size of and speaking about that Rams Packers game, I want to say the week before that he played the Chargers, or maybe it was after, I forget. But there was that period where Jordan Love was also struggling, and he played the two LA teams, and he started picking it up there. And from that point, he kind of was, he took off and he made his money that way. So yeah, Trevor Lawrence, Tua Tagovailoa. Who else got paid that I'm blanking on, or even like Dak Prescott? Like I'd rather have Jordan Love for the next five,
Yeah.
6 years. He's that talented. Obviously, he's 0-2. He has an injury issue, and maybe that's not making my case. But in terms of like I talk about in boxing, pound for pound, in terms of skill set for quarterbacks, he has it, and the connection that he has with Jaden Reed, man, it's fun to watch those two guys going at it. Obviously, from fantasy football point of view, in Brazil, and then last week, Jaden Reed went off with Jordan Love. He's starting to become the number one wide receiver, not in a traditional sense because he's not your typical route runner, big body, wide out, catch radius, all that. But he's kind of becoming this mini version of Debo Samuel in Green Bay. So they're very explosive, and Dontavius Wicks is making plays. Romeo Dobbs. They have a good running game with Josh Jacobs there. I kind of thought that was a forced marriage between Josh Jacobs and Jordan Love, but obviously they're scoring points at will, so they're making something work there. Uh, but yeah, they're 2-2 still, so obviously they're beatable. I can't prop him up too high because he hasn't won a game this year. But we're
Yeah.
looking at stats and just the scoreboard. They're pretty good at getting a lot of points right now. And I know with the Rams, that hasn't been their strength this year.
Yeah, and kind of looking at this team, preparing for this matchup, I looked at this offense, and as you said, I mean, they're explosive, and this is where we'll talk about it when it comes to the Rams defense, and they're one of the things that we've seen from this Rams defense is their inability to not give up the big play, and this is what the Packers do. The thing with the Packers that just from the first 4 games so far is that they just haven't been consistent from play to play. Like they hit like they're I think they're top 3 in explosive plays, which is great to have. But when you don't do it consistently, that's when you kind of run into problems. And I think that's why it's been an up and down season for them so far. And I get it. They've had to change their style from Jordan Love to Malik Willis and then back to Jordan Love. And that it's not Jordan Love's fault that they're 0-2 when he's played. It's more been about the matchups as you talked about. And they have a lot of young guys, and I'm with you. I think the guy that out of all those guys you mentioned that deserved to be paid was him, and he waited. They developed him. He's one of those guys. They didn't, and they have a lot of young talent on this team offensively and defensively. I think outside of like maybe one of their starters, everybody's under 30 years old. But it's just been weird seeing this offense so far, just because they've had to adjust. I mean, when you saw Jordan Love, injury against the Eagles in Brazil, you kind of thought, well, they're gonna have to rely on Malik Willis, and then Matt LaFleur has done a great job of, you know, piecing together, 2 games and winning it with Malik Willis. So that's been the thing. But I think the big thing too, Gilbert, that I was gonna ask you about, that was my next thing before we move on to their defense, was just Josh Jacobs. And we've had this discussion on regular compas, and the running back position, and how you just mentioned the quarterbacks, the ones that probably shouldn't have gotten paid that much, and then the devaluing of the running back position, and now we're seeing how much valuable it's going to become, because you have Josh Jacobs, you have Saquon Barkley, you have Derrick Henry, who are all playing really well right now, that are adding that value back into the running back position. So how has Josh Jacobs, how does he fit into this equation with this offense?
Yeah, he's had some moments where he kind of, goes quiet, which is maybe tough because when you're playing with the quarterback that good, and you don't want to go away from the passing attack too much. It's kind of like what the Chargers are going through with Justin Herbert, where they're not really letting Justin Herbert cook, but the Packers are going to let Jordan Love do that. And I like that approach. You got to have some kind of balance to where, okay, you know what you have, you paid the kid for a reason, but you also paid a running back too. And I think Matt LaFleur is one of those people that could see the game ahead and be ahead of the curve. And I'm like, why did you pay for Josh Jacobs? You're kind of gonna you're gonna force this running back here when your stallion of a quarterback is taking off, and you have to give the, because you're paying him $10 million for the season. You're gonna give him a lot of carries, but that hasn't really been the case. So even some of the backup running backs are getting involved. So it's similar to what Derrick Henry is going through in Baltimore, where like just make life easier. Like when Jordan Love is in a rhythm, here's a handoff, rip one off for 10, 12 yards, and then you're playing that balance game and you're playing the mind games for the defense, and that's the way they've been doing it. And even in that first half against the Eagles in Brazil, Josh Jacobs kind of was struggling to get the flow of the game, but eventually it just got easy for him, and there were
Yeah.
lanes there. They're opening it up because people are worried about Jaden Reed coming behind on a jet sweep or getting some kind of handoff. So uh, I think this running back investment that teams made in the offseason is starting to pay off. With Saquon's a little different because he's having to carry the team, but he's playing very well. They're just banged up at wide receiver, and he's been just kind of the only reason they've been not doing well offensively. But another reason why running backs are making the most of the money, and these quarterbacks are making maybe three times that or four times that, and they're not doing
Yeah.
too much right now. But yeah, I think it's been a good marriage, and obviously still early in the process. But we'll see how they do against the Rams at SoFi Stadium.
Yeah, and I mean the way things are going with these running backs, I mean they're bargains at this point. Honestly, if you're asking me, through 4 games, just because of the way defenses have shifted, they become the main thing right now. Having a running back right now is a huge weapon. And then just kind of moving over to the Packers defense, we've seen, they hired new defensive corner Jeff Heffley. He was a he was a head coach at Boston College, Gilbert, but he was an assistant coach with the Buccaneers, with Washington, and with the 49ers. So there's a connection here with like the McVays, the Shanahans, and LaFleur's here. And so one of the things that I've really liked about, we talked about this as well on regular Compass, is that, you know, giving opportunities to guys from the college level has played really well. One thing that I did see, leading up, kind of getting ready for this matchup here, was the one thing they've struggled with, Gilbert, and you brought it up in terms of was their pass rush. But I was going to say, you brought up the Saber McKinney. I love that signing, the safety from the New York Giants coming over. He's been great. They've been able to turn teams over, but one thing that they've really struggled with is their pass rush. They haven't been getting home for sacks. So what it has, have they made the improvements that they needed from what they had under their old defensive coordinator, and how do they look to you? Has this defense looked the part?
Yeah, you're right when it comes to getting takeaways. That's been the biggest difference there. But if it's been a lot of mixed results, and I guess ironically, their two worst games have been with Jordan Love playing. They couldn't really defend too well against AJ Brown and the Eagles in Brazil, and they struggled a lot, obviously, against Sam Darnold and the Vikings last week. But those two Malik Willis games, the one in Tennessee, they got a bunch of turnovers there, sacks, interceptions, whatever it is. And then also the Colts game too, where they forced Anthony Richardson into three interceptions there. Like you mentioned, Xavier McKinney has been getting his money's worth there with the interception. So they're being put in the right places to get these takeaways, which I've been screaming for the LA Rams to do stuff like that. Get your sacks, get your takeaways, just make impact plays. And sometimes that's all you need, especially when they didn't have Jordan Love and the defense needed to make more of an impact with the injuries on offense. They did that by smothering Anthony Richardson and uh, Will Levis. So the defense did better, but obviously when they faced the Vikings and the Eagles, it wasn't as good. So it's tough to kind of give them a full assessment besides like a C plus or something. But if I'm giving a grade on it, but I think those takeaways make all the difference. And but even after all that, they're still 2-2, and they have their ups and downs. But I think a change needed to happen from the prior DC, and it's going to take some time to get acclimated to the new one here, Jeff Halfley. But the takeaways, they must be nice. So they definitely make your life easier when you get opportunities like that.
Yeah, and I just like the fact that Matt LaFleur went out and got somebody that wasn't from that he knew. Yeah, like he's been around those guys, the Shanahan's. Like I said, he was an assistant pretty much in the same circles that the Shanahan's, the McDaniels, all those guys have been around. So I mean, he went outside of it instead of what we saw with Sean McVay and going and getting Chris Shula. Not that it's been a bad hire, but we've talked about this, about some of these coaches just continuing to hire within instead of going out and trying to get the best possible guy out there to, make things better for yourself. Before we move on to storylines for the Rams, Gilbert, I want to make sure we get to our comments here. Our guy Angel Salcedo, a Chargers fan who's they're on a bye week. He's checking in with us. He's like, "What's up, my brother?" So good to hear
What's
from
up,
you,
Angel?
Angel. DJ Fono says, "Cool. I'll be there hopefully for Dolphins versus Rams Veterans Day,
Mm,
celebrating the life of my military comrades. I'm a vet myself, so hopefully I'll be there in November again." So hey, shout out to you for your service.
yeah,
Thank you
thank
for
you.
your service, DJ. That's awesome. And yeah, like if we can try to make it out there and do a show from out there, we're gonna try. It's just with the schedule and everything. We don't want to give you guys any false hopes, but yeah, let us know where to kind of set up, and that'll be awesome. It's in the parking lot to see everybody. James Wheelock says, in terms of a key, run the ball, execute in the red zone, and keep the Green Bay offense off the field. Michael Armenta says, "Where's Blake Corum, MIA?"
Mm.
I just think with the way Kyron Williams and Ronnie Rivers are playing right now. That's the reason we're not seeing Blake Corum. I don't think the problem is the running backs. I just their injuries are with the receivers, and if Blake Corum was a receiver, he'd be out there.
Yeah, I guess the whole thing is like, why even use a draft pick then if you're not gonna get them involved in any way?
I
Uh,
Yeah,
but
true.
I understand why they haven't gone to him. Kyron Williams is a good running back. He proved himself last year, and maybe it was more like, you know what, it's just Kyron Williams can't stay healthy, so let's just have this insurance plan, and maybe the injury might come later this year. Luckily, he hasn't been hurt while the wide receivers have been out, so that's been good. But you know this game is brutal. You never know when your injuries might come. So be patient on Blake Corum. You obviously want to see him more in the flow, but maybe it
Yeah.
could be as simple as that. He was just there, and in terms of protection, because Kyron Williams had injury history the first 2 years.
Yeah, and then the other thing too with rookies that we've seen, Gilbert, is picking up that blitz, and that's why I can't fall because Ronnie Rivers has been great picking up
Mm.
the blitz and on third down, and just what we've seen from Kyron Williams has been really good. Uh, especially lately when they've started to kind of use him the way he should be. And then one more from Mike Armenta says, "Well, if you play all three, they should have fairly fresh legs." So yeah, I mean, maybe give them more, like give them more of a run here instead of just doing 20 to 25 carries. Do 30 between all three of them. I think things would, especially in this game. If you're going to keep the Green Bay offense off the field, you're going to need to run the ball, and we'll get to that, Gilbert.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just tough to have the game script go your way when your first priority is run the football and play keep away. That's always a recipe for disaster because you fall behind 10 points and your game plan's out the window.
Yep, exactly. And then we have our guy Shaft from Detroit. He says, "Evening, gents." So good
What's
to
up?
hear. Good to what's up, Shaft.
Been a
And
minute.
then one last one from DJ Fono. I feel Tutu will earn his wide
Hmm,
receiver three spot in this game, and
he has been.
he has been really good the last two games. Hopefully, as you mentioned, Gilbert, once the other guys come back, he can continue to show the signs he's been showing lately. All right, Gilbert. Let's move over to the Rams and let's start off with the offense. How does Sean McVay go about fixing the red zone issue? So let me tell you this: the Rams are first in terms of getting to the red zone, which is awesome to hear.
Hmm.
Like they get to the red zone. Unfortunately, they're 27th in red zone touchdowns through 4 games, Gilbert. So how does Sean McVay go off about fixing the red zone issues? Does it start with one of our comments said earlier and just let Sean McVay. Let Matthew Stafford call the plays in the red zone.
Uh, yeah, and I'm sure he has some say there too. And he's a veteran quarterback. Like he maybe doesn't get as much leeway as Aaron Rodgers does in his career. He's having issues with Robert Saleh there right now, but obviously that could be something there. And I think McVay's one of those guys that likes to okay, I messed up here. Let me reassess. What can I do better? So maybe he'll be better in the red zone this week. But as we know, that's been an issue for over a year now, maybe more with him. So uh, I know it's not an excuse, but it's not easy to make these plays when you have no Puka, you don't have Cooper Cup. These are the guys that know how to make plays in tight spaces when you don't have the full field, and you gotta remember that beautiful motion touchdown that Cooper Cup got in Week 1. It looks pretty and maybe it looks a little easy because you're going back and forth, but not everybody could do that. Nobody
Mm-hmm.
uh, to get the timing down. You could sometimes get like an illegal formation, one wrong move, and then you get screwed over and you fall behind on the sticks there. So that's one thing for Sean McVay, obviously, but maybe don't be afraid to run the football more. I know everybody's screaming about that. Keep getting Kyron Williams involved. Maybe keep him in the passing game involved there. But yeah, it's always tough, and every situation is different. Game script, things like that. Your how far can your kicker kick, things like that. So, in the simplest terms, yeah, it's not fun not having those wide receivers, but definitely look more into having the running game or the running back Kyron Williams more involved in a unique way.
Yeah, because the times you've scored touchdowns, they've been with Kyron Williams, and as you mentioned, not having those two guys really hurts, especially if you want to throw the ball in the red zone. So it's kind of hard to do that. Your tight ends haven't been great, and that's part of the problem too. Getting open in the red zone. I mean, the reason it's harder to score in the red zone is because the field shrinks and you have to be able to take advantage and make plays in terms of using the small spaces that you do have in the red zone to be able to get yards and be able to punch it into the end zone. I think it starts, as you mentioned, with Kyron Williams and running the ball and using him in the screen game, using him in the passing game, and running some different kind of motion in terms of either running some reverses, just kind of change things up to where you're just not throwing fades to Demarcus Robinson in the end zone, which that's one of the worst plays. I hate every time I see it. I'm like, it's not gonna go. It doesn't work unless you have Megatron or someone like Terrell Owens that can go and get it like a jump ball. It doesn't work, and so it's kind of hard, Gilbert. But yeah, it's hard to see how they fix these red zone issues when you don't have Cooper Cup and Puka Nakua.
Yeah, no, we'll see what they do, and obviously, if they feel like the running game is flowing and going pretty easy, you go to him because Kyron Williams is your best player, and I guess when you get in the red zone, it's tough to get too involved unless it's like a little short pass and a couple of jet sweeps here for him, but just more creativity. Yeah, maybe don't do a fade when you don't have your two best wide receivers on the field.
Yeah, and I mean, they need to get better. I mean, it's awesome to see them getting to the red zone, leading the league, and getting to the red zone. But you have, I mean, you went 2 for 4. Was it 2 for 5? I think against the Bears. And I get it. You're facing really good defenses in the Bears and the 49ers the last couple of weeks, but it needs to improve, especially when you have uh, a offensive guy like McVay at your disposal, and it's been a problem since last season. Gilbert, it's not just this season. It's been a problem, and we've talked about it. Everybody sees it. Every Rams fan, every Rams analyst sees it. Like, he gets pass happy, and sometimes that's a deterrent to when you get in the red zone, and it's been costly for them. All right, Gilbert. Next, let's switch over to their defense now. And as I said, as we opened up the show, I sent you a video about the Rams linebackers and Troy Reader, and they just the effort there was. I mean, they don't look like linebackers out there, and we're not gonna keep saying hey, they should have traded Ernest Jones, but I will, like, moving over. Should the Rams give more opportunities to their linebackers and Omar Spates and Jack Hummel? I mean, at this point, what should they go? Should they try something new?
Yeah, I know they're trying to go with the more of the veteran presence there with Roseboom and Reader, but it's not really working. And then you have to face Josh Jacobs, and you have to face just good running game and a very smart OC or play caller. He's a head coach, Matt Lafleur. The brothers were face up again, Mike and Matt,
Hmm.
as a key matchup there. But yeah, and yes, we can't keep harping on the whole Ernest Jones trade, and I don't know. I'm never gonna understand that one, but it just goes back to just defense and not having enough talent, and when you have a young defense and a defense that doesn't have enough talent, you need guys who are veterans, and maybe they think they could get that in Troy Reader and Roseboom, but they're not the answer. This is why Reader has kind of been on maybe or a couple different teams now. I forget where he went after the
He's
Chargers.
mostly I mean, both
Yeah,
guys are mainly special teams guy, Gilbert. I
yeah,
mean, even on those plays, like, I'm not a tape guy. We both aren't tape guys, but the way they were, like, lined up, I mean, they're not they're getting mauled by linemen, and the Bears linemen weren't great coming into the game, Gilbert. That's part of the issue. I understand if you were facing the Lions or the Eagles offensive line, there was a beat up Bears offensive line.
yeah. And DeAndre Swift had his best game of the season for a reason. So yeah, I definitely want to see different players in there, give it a chance with somebody else. There's a reason why you kept Spates there, so want to play them against the Packers this week.
Yeah, yeah. It's just they need to try something different. We already know what the issues are with the secondary. As we said, Darius Williams could be back as soon as this game, but I just don't see them him being the answer to fixing other problems on the secondary. I think if you try Omar Spates and Jack Hummel, that might help. But it helps, at least trying something new rather than trying to put these two special teams guys out there. And it's not on them. They thought Ernest Jones was going to be the guy, in the middle there, and it just threw everything out the window for those guys, and they've had to step up. So, and unfortunately, they're having to be the ones that everybody looks at, like, what the hell's going on with this linebacker crew. Gilbert, before we move on to our player matchups, I have Shap here. Rams need to get healthy. Stafford needs weapons. Stafford isn't the type of QB to make his wide receivers better like some of the great ones in the
Oh,
league.
wow.
Yeah, well, he would know. He had Stafford there for a long time.
I
So
don't know. He's making Tutu and Whittington better, but
yeah.
okay, I can see
Uh,
that.
yeah. James Wheelock says it's a constant interplay between play calling and execution, but I'll leave it up to Kyron Williams. Too many passes in the red zone, so he also agrees. Shab says a healthy Rams team wins last week against the
Yeah,
Rams. Yeah,
I
I
can
mean,
see
against the
that.
Bears. Yeah, and then Michael says exactly. We have to see what these guys can do. Uh, and then DJ Juan says White is getting smoked, and Rosewood needs to step up or next man up. So yeah. And then he says word on the streets is Levante's coming to the Rams. I mean, it could happen.
Yeah,
You never
you
know.
want to
We've
give
seen,
up a third round pick, I don't, or maybe a second. We'll see. You never know. They do like
yeah,
to
you
make
never.
trades here.
Yeah, they do. We've seen Les Need say F them picks. All right, Gilbert. Let's close out. Let's pick up the pace here. Rams Packers player matchups. What do you got here? What are you looking at? What's a key matchup for you?
Yeah, I know. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse here, but the secondary sucks here. I keep
Yeah.
saying it for the Rams, probably the worst secondary in the league, and also bad linebackers. So you got to face Jaden Reed here, and Jaden Reed, like I mentioned, he kind of reminds me of Debo Samuel. Maybe not as fast, but definitely as versatile. And when you gotta keep tabs on him, and you have a bunch of secondary guys and linebackers who are struggling to kind of just keep up, that could be a problem there for Jaden for this team facing Jaden Reed. So Jordan Love likes to go to Jaden Reed. Matt LaFleur likes to scheme it up for Jaden Reed. So just make sure you have somebody on them and just be aware, communicate. Don't have a bunch of miscommunication and broken assignments, because he will make you pay and take one to the house, or maybe a couple of times, because he is a yak monster and he's very versatile.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, and you also have the Tavius Wicks. You have Tucker Craft. They have a lot of dudes that a lot. They got a lot of B's and C receivers, and that's the problem. And then as I talked about, I mean, they are top three in explosive plays, and that's one of the things that the Rams secondary hasn't been good at is keeping explosive plays, or limiting them, I should say. And so this could be a bad matchup in terms of that. Like, I mean, it could either be really ugly, or if they can somehow keep keep the roof closed for the secondary, maybe they can stay in this game. But yeah, it's gonna that's a tough matchup for that secondary. For me, Gilbert, I'll go back the offensive line going up against the front seven of the Packers. As we talked about, this defense relies on turnovers for the Packers. You should be able to run the ball. You know, you finally have no injuries along that offensive line. Yes, you're dealing with some backups, but these are the guys you're going to go with going forward for a while now until you get Steve Avila, you get your other offensive lineman back. I think right now what you really need to do is you need to run the ball with Kyron Williams, and I think it starts up front with those big linemen. And I just between Bo Limmer, um, Kevin Dotson, you have Rob Havenstein, Logan Bruss, and Alaric Jackson. Those guys held up pretty well against the Bears. I would like to see them continue. I think where you got to continue to run the ball with this team. This is without your two main receivers and Cooper Cup and Puka Nakua. Rely on that offensive line right now and run the ball. This is what you wanted to do. Yeah, you don't have Jonah Jackson and you don't have Steve Avila to be able to run what you wanted to, but we've seen how much better this team looks when they run the ball, Gilbert, and so you should continue to try to do that.
Yeah, this might be one of those games where if you win the coin toss, take the ball, establish a run, get a touchdown drive on the opening drive, and play up and be up 7-0, because again they could score in a hurry. And if you're trying to come from behind, that running game might go out the window with Sean McVay there.
Yeah, and it's like I said, this game could turn ugly fast, especially with those explosives as you mentioned earlier. And so, in order, we saw some of the comments here. We talked about you gotta control the clock here by running the ball, and that's the way to do it. You have to rely on those offensive line going up against that front seven of the Packers. That's where you can take advantage of. A couple more comments here before we move on to keys, Gilbert. Shap says the Rams have turned into the Lions of 5 or 6 years ago. Um, well, I mean, they did have Stafford, so that kind of makes sense 5, 6 years ago. So I
Yeah,
could see that.
bad defense. I guess if was it 5 years ago was no Megatron around, that could make sense
Yeah.
too.
Yep. Michael Armenta says, "Man, Rams missing Higby right now, and they really do." Yeah, I thought Davis Allen. I know he's been hurt. I thought he would take, he would take a step forward. He hasn't. They've really struggled with their tight ends this season. All right, Gilbert. Rams Packers keys to the game. What do you got?
I know I could always take the easy one and give me some more impact plays because his defense doesn't do it. But it could definitely happen this week because Jordan Love sometimes likes to force the ball. He's known for some interceptions here and there. But I'll just go off of creativity, and I know you know we talked about it a little bit in the red zone, but I want to see Sean McVay really like go back to his old ways of like, okay, scheme it up well for Jordan Whittington, maybe get him more involved,
Hmm.
have some more unexpected people contribute, and maybe have a game where Stafford's throwing to 8, 9, 10 players and just get more bodies involved and keep a good rhythm with the offense. So I guess that'll be the way. Be creative, have a good rhythm. Uh, Find ways to give Jordan Whittington maybe a bigger role. I think he's earned it. Obviously, Tutu, you know what you got in him, and making a good amount of plays. He's not a guy who will make plays consistently throughout the whole game, but have a guy who's maybe getting 10 catches and maybe 11 or 12 targets, and just kind of having that good pace, good communication with Stafford. So just be creative, and you got to find ways to just be matching that scoreboard because they are going to score points. Your defense is not good. You're facing Jordan Love, so just find unique ways to keep pace, either with the jet sweeps, emotions, just something that you could do to remind people, Sean McVay, that you're the one of the most creative minds in the NFL.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, you have to kind of change, adapt, and evolve. I mean, I think that's where you're at right now, especially with a lot of guys that you're missing on this team right now. I'm with you there. I'll give you three real quick, and I'll do each phase of this team. Offensively, continue to feed Kyron Williams because when you feed him, good things happen. Defensively, you gotta try to turn some you got to force some turnovers, as you mentioned before, Gilbert. You know you we've seen this team. The 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 defensive line has put on pressure. They're one of the top teams in terms of creating pressure. They're not getting sacks. They're not getting turnovers. Force get a couple sacks, a couple of turnovers, and I think you are on your way to winning this game. And special teams, Gilbert, be aggressive. We saw what happened. Like, do a fake punt, return some kicks, return some punts here and there. Try to put your special teams in motion to be able to have an impact in this game to win, because that's how you won the game against the 49ers. It was your special teams and being aggressive, going for it on fourth down with on a punk fake. So, and then the return by Xavier Smith. I'm so happy for Xavier Smith because he should have been on this team from the beginning, but I understood, there was a numbers crunch, and now he's getting his opportunity. But I just feel that you have to be more aggressive if you're gonna get to 2 and 3 going into the bye, because and then you can try to get healthy. I think if you're gonna pull off this upset, you're gonna have to pull all the stops like they did against the 49ers, Gilbert.
Yeah, I agree. And just one quick note here is Sean McVay's, I guess, his disdain for the dynamic kickoff. It's been validated because it has not done anything so far this season. I
No.
know Roger Goodell is trying to tweak with it, so I'm sure McVay feels validated. Like, yeah, I was right to bash this crappy dynamic kickoff. But hey, if they get a return for a touchdown, that will definitely go a long way this week.
And I don't blame the NFL for trying, man. Like, at least they're trying stuff. Like, some leagues take decades to be, baseball. I love baseball, but man, like they take like decades to be able to, kind of improve the game, and say, even basketball has been more progressive of late. But football, they at least want to try stuff. Hey, it's a 1 year experiment. If it doesn't work, it doesn't. At least they tried it, and hey, it hasn't hurt anything. At least some teams have tried to do something with it. But I'm with you. Like, yeah, Sean McVay, I'm sure is like, yeah, I told you guys. That's why I'm on the. Isn't he on the committee on the
Yeah,
Bros? Yeah.
I'm not gonna make the joke, but if you saw the clip where he confused committee with something else, just go watch it. It was pretty funny.
Let's get to these comments before we get to our betting line here. Our Michael Armendez says lots of missed tackles by the defense. Got to clean that up. That is for sure. And DJ Fono says, "Is Witherspoon playing? He should be playing. He's still on the practice squad. I'm guessing even if Darius Williams is active, they will activate. They will have Witherspoon on the active roster. So we will see. Oh, we got a fantasy question for you. DJ Fono wants to know who should I get on my fantasy, Tutu or Whittington?
I'll go Whittington. I think it's gonna be a big game for him. I think they know what they have. He's getting better every week, and yeah, I know Tutu could always kind of get you like a 50-yard bomb, but I think maybe the receptions and PPR, Whittington could be the guy.
Yeah, and he had 6 of them last week, and with Demarcus Robinson kind of just, you know,
Mm.
MIA, I think he's the guy. I'm with you there, Gilbert. All right, Gilbert. The Rams are 3. They've yet to be favored in any game, and rightfully so, just because
Wow.
of with the matchups they've had. The Rams are 3-point underdogs. The over under is 49.5. What is the right side of this line, Gilbert?
Yeah, they definitely should be underdogs here. The Packers are a better team. The Rams are a mess. They're just beat up. A lot of injuries offensively, so that kind of tells you they can't keep pace offensively. And then they have a pretty bad defense with they're lacking talent and they're pretty young. So I know they're at home and say they were on the road in Green Bay, they'll probably be 7 point favorites for 7.5. So
Yeah.
yeah, and this being -3, it might get to a point where it moves over because a lot of people are taking the Packers here, and I'm not surprised about that. So if you get the Packers at -3, go ahead and jump on that. If they start going to maybe 3.5, maybe 4, maybe take the Rams, but even then, I won't feel good about it.
Yeah, I thought this might be like before I checked the line, I thought it might be like a 6 and a 5, but I think betters are starting to realize the trend, and they're trying to make sure that some of these lines are way lower than they should be because they're afraid of the cover now, as we've been seeing a lot of the underdogs have been covering or winning outright. And so I understand why this line is -3 here for the Packers. But yeah, and then I think that over might hit here just because of what we saw last time the Rams were at home. I just think they're gonna score points in this matchup. They're especially if they're behind, they're gonna pass the ball and you'll get some garbage touchdowns if that's the case. All right, Gilbert. Rams Packers game predictions. What you got?
Yeah, as you guys could tell by my responses and my tone here, and my, I guess, being critical of the Rams' defense and not being optimistic about the offense and the opponent. So this one for me, usually I have to think about it. This one is not so much. Even when it was 49ers Rams, I felt like, you know what, the Rams could pull it off. This one, I just don't feel good about the Rams here. So I will go Packers 31, Rams 20. So obviously Packers cover and we get the over. So it's just a tough matchup where you need the game script to go right when you're pretty banged up, you're shorthanded, you don't have much of a defense right now, and you're facing, one of the best passing attacks in the league. I guess the only positive you could take away is that Jordan Love is 0-2. But when he's been playing, that offense has been pretty lights out. So your number one issue right now is probably the defense, the secondary, the linebacker. And I just maybe they keep pace for the first half. Maybe as they go into the halftime 17-17, but by the second half, I just see this offense being way too much for this defense. So 31-20 Packers.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, like I'm sure like the rest of the country and everybody else who looks at this matchup, they're gonna go with the Packers in this game. I mean, the Rams haven't shown you anything outside of that little comeback that they had against the 49ers. But one of the things that I looked at this, I have to get ready for not only this show, but also the other show that we do together, which is Gilberto's Hour on Thursday. And I was looking at all the games, kind of as getting ready for that show as well. And I was trying to look at some of the underdogs, and I was trying to see where I can go because there's a lot of good games where you can look for because the lines aren't big anymore, Gilbert. Like the lines, people are adjusting now. Vegas is adjusting, and they're seeing like, hey, if we make these lines way too big, a lot of these teams are covering, and so I looked at this matchup and I said, how can the Rams win this game? One thing too, Gilbert, that I kept in mind is whenever both of us pick the same result on this show, they end up being the opposite way. So just to kind of be different, last time I did this was with the 49ers. I told you, I was straight up. I don't know how the Rams were going to pull off that win against the 49ers. I'm not trying to BS you. I don't know. The only thing I can tell you is that their lone win came at home. And I'm just expecting the Rams to somehow, some way pull off a miracle in this game and pull off a win against the Packers because nobody's picking them. One thing we've seen with the trends this season is if everybody's picking a team, go the other way. So that's the only reason I'm going here with the Rams. I honestly don't have a good feeling about this game. If I'm being completely honest, this looks like a blowout from the Packers' point of view. But because we've talked about this, I've also have to be smart about how we're doing this and look at the trends. And I can't explain to you how the Rams are gonna pull off this win, but I'm just gonna go the opposite way here, Gilbert, because I just, like I said, I keep looking at this season and it hasn't gone the way we all thought it would. So give me the Rams in this game, and I'll say it's a 28-23 game for the Rams here.
Yeah, no, I can't fault you too much because there's upsets every single week, and until that trend ends, I'm gonna keep favoring underdogs and taking the points too. I just don't see it with this one.
Yep.
I'm trying my best to see it, but I can't. That's I kind of shift to other underdogs, but there's gonna be two, maybe three. It happens every week until it stops. I'm gonna keep saying it's gonna happen. Obviously, last week was the Broncos and the Jets. Everybody had
Hmm.
them. Maybe the week before that was the Panthers and the Raiders. Week one was the Bengals and the Patriots. Week
Yeah,
two,
that was the Raiders and the
the
Ravens.
Ravens. Obviously, the Commanders being the Bengals. It's just been a bunch of upsets. So
Yep.
uh, I could definitely see that happening just without even no real analysis to it. It's just the way it is in the NFL. But yeah, this defense is not very good and they're banged up.
No.
So I can't take them.
Yeah, and I told you, like, I'm not trying to play the homer role here. I'm not like, yeah, like I could really see this happening for the Rams. I'm just going with the trends here and the way it's looked. I went through the only and I'm going through this right now. The only game where it's 6.5 or more is the Seahawks and Giants, Gilbert. You have the
Oh, I think the
49ers at,
Cardinals and the 49ers.
yeah, 49ers is -7. Outside of that, everything is under 4, Gilbert. Like the Bears and Panthers is 4. That's that this is the closest the lines have been. Oh, and then the Chiefs 5.5. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, you're just not, you're not seeing it. And the fact that this game is -3 kind of tells you that people aren't 100% sure, and the Packers haven't looked great either. Even I was expecting this team to be way better than they are, along with the Texans. Both of those teams, yeah, the Texans are above 500, but they haven't looked good either. So I mean, it's just been a straight season. So why not just hey, throw a dart here and say the Rams win this game, and they're playing at home. They play way better at home, and I know it's not going to be a true home game because there's going to be a lot of Packer fans in the building. But we I though that's one thing too, Gilbert. I don't know how they're going to pull it off because I'm with you. This defense isn't great, and maybe the only way I could see it, as I mentioned, those three keys. You run the ball with Kyron Williams. Defensively, you force some turnovers, and then on special teams, you're aggressive.
Yeah, no, we'll see what happens, and obviously we're going to talk about it more on Gilberto's hour on after Thursday Night Football, Buccaneers and the Falcons, and I'm gonna keep favoring these plus teams, and especially the ones that get +4, +5, whatever it is. If the Rams were maybe like +4, I would have maybe said, okay, cool, I can see it. -3, I don't know if I do. But yeah, it's the year of the underdog so far, and until it changes, I'm not gonna make fun of people who are taking heavy underdogs, and I'm making fun of the people who are taking heavy favorites. Obviously, last week the 49ers destroyed the Patriots. That was the first time this season where it felt like, oh, okay, finally somebody's dominating a heavy underdog. But other than that, it's been pretty close all these games.
Yeah, and that's why. I mean, you have to look at the trends and the way things are going. I mean, you can't just, and that's one of the things that we do on Gilberto's hours. So make sure you go and check us out after Buccaneers and Falcons on Thursday Night Football. But Michael Armenta, Michael Armenta says 27-24 Packers. So we have around the same score there. DJ Fono says, I think he liked the fact that I picked the Rams here in this game. And then Mike Armenta says, I see the glass half full. So there you go. DJ Fono says, thanks, guys, for the love. Really appreciate the support and dedication. Keep it up, brothers, Rams house. So thank you for checking in and staying the
Yeah,
whole hour. That is awesome. We really appreciate that. And then Jerry Guevara says, I think a lot of folks dig on McVay for his play calling mishaps, but he is a motivator and a leader. Can't count him out in any game. That is very true. That is true. We understand that he is a really good coach. Honestly, the Rams wouldn't have the Super Bowl if it wasn't for him. But at the same time, it's okay to criticize. I mean, even he's brought it up in terms of the red zone issue. So we're just bringing up what's been some of the problems that this team, and he hasn't had his whole complement of guys, so there's also that.
yeah, no, that's why a lot of people like to because I was actually thinking a lot of people might take the Rams here because they just love Sean McVay, because he's a motivator and a leader, like Jerry said. That week they played the Cardinals and they got blown out. A lot of people took the Rams that week because obviously they trust McVay. We saw what McVay did against the 49ers. So, I think that the Bears game kind of left a bad taste in people's, I guess, or mind or mouth, whatever you want to say. And they're shifting away a little bit because the injuries are starting to pile up a little bit. But yeah, no, we'll see what happens on Sunday.
Yeah. And a couple more here. Michael Armenta says Rams took Lions to OT, beat Frisco. We got this. So there you go. I mean, that is also to the McVay. And as you said, I mean, I think the two losses, the ones after the Lions game, have been the one where people have been kind of shifting the way they see McVay, which is totally understandable, Gilbert. DJ Fono says, by the way, did you guys get a McVay bobblehead? We did not.
I did not.
I didn't even know he got a. I know you and
Yeah, I think it was a
Fernando talked
49ers
about.
game.
Yeah, they gave away. Is that what happened? They
Yeah,
gave away a
they
bobblehead.
gave it away at the 49ers game.
Yeah, so that's cool. I mean, I'm not, I don't think I've ever seen a football coach, get a bobblehead. But hey, it is Sean McVay. I'm sure we'll see it with the Chargers and Jim Harbaugh. And then one last one. DJ Fono says I kept seeing the so-called loyal 49er fans walking around SoFi with a McVay bobblehead.
Hey, they got to put it on
That's
eBay,
funny
DJ.
that I forgot about that. So they gave the bobbleheads to a bunch of 49er fans. That is hilarious. Didn't think about that,
Or
but
hopefully they have Rams fans, Rams
yeah,
friends. Sorry, fans. You know what I mean? Friends who
um,
are friends fans. But
or they just put it on eBay or
yeah,
Poshmark or whatever, and they sold it online.
yeah,
I'm sure there's a
there's
lot
some
of
value
rentals.
there with the Sean McVay
Yeah.
bobblehead.
I would agree there. All right, Gilbert. So we've done, we've gone a little bit over an hour, and which is awesome. It's good to see people in the comments. As we talked about DJ Fono, Michael Armenta, Jerry Guevara. We had Shaft, a Lions fan, James Wheelock, and Angel Salcedo. So it's awesome to see people in the feedback. If you're watching this on replay, go ahead and leave a comment. Give us your keys to the game. We really like seeing the feedback from everybody. It's awesome to see. We'll be back on Sunday night or Sunday afternoon after the game when Gilbert is done with his stories with SI, and we'll hop on around 4:45, 4:50, and then we'll do a post game show for you guys, and hopefully it's a win for the Rams as they go into the bye week, Gilbert.
Yeah, we'll see. But listen to Shaft and smash that like button. We appreciate all the support here. Like we gave a shout out to DJ, Michael, Jerry. You guys we don't haven't seen on Delbert. Where are you? We'll see you, I'm sure, in the comments. So we appreciate that, Evan, guys like that. It's just good to know all these names and recognize all the usernames. And we're always welcome to see new viewers and listeners drop by on House of Horns. So if you have friends who like the Packers and want to get a point of view of the Rams and the Packers, tell them to check out this show. Obviously, if you have Rams fans, friends who support the Rams, go ahead and let them know about House of Horns. But it's a good community here. It keeps growing. And even during losses and hard times, you guys come out and show out and show support for the channel. So we really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's been awesome to see everybody and like just seeing the people as you mentioned. I mean, it's awesome to see we can have these conversations, with guys like, James Wheelock and DJ Fono and Michael Armenta. He's always on here. As you mentioned, Delbert has been pretty awesome. There's been other guys, whether it's Daniel Calderon, and we have a little community, and it's been awesome to continue to grow even as the Rams have kind of struggled out the gate here in 2024. But yeah, Gilbert, another good show. We gave a great analysis for both teams. Now you're all prepared for this matchup, and we'll see what happens. But we'll see you guys, like I said, Sunday afternoon after the game.
Yeah, let's get going to week 5. Make sure to check us out on Thursday night on the YouTube channel here in House of Horns, Compas on the Beat, What's Up Boats, and we'll break it down for week 5 on Gilberto's Hour. And definitely check us out on Sunday, like Victor mentioned, for the post game show. But it's time to get going. Head to week 5. Enjoy the game if you're going out there like DJ is. Hopefully, your son has a good time, DJ, at SoFi Stadium. Rams Packers in LA. Let's see if Victor is right, and maybe it's a close one, and maybe I'm wrong. Hopefully, I am wrong for your guys' sake. But I hate being wrong. But let's see what happens. On that note, nos vamos, pues, vámonos.